Okay, open up your Bibles to Esther chapter 7. Esther chapter 7. So, it's a short chapter, 10 verses, but I want us to start off with examining a few things. So, we talk a lot about Haman and his situation, the way he views things. We know from what the Pew Packers have saying that he's very prideful. He's got a lot of anger issues, and he's very vindictive. In this whole situation, how do you think Esther and Mordecai handle these things? Especially, we see a few things with Esther to how she handled it. What about Mordecai? Remember, he's there at the gate. This guy, Haman, goes by him every day. He sees him. He knows the man is out to get him and is angry. Do you think there's ever any kind of worry or anxiety, maybe some sleepless nights for Mordecai, or do you think he's a stalwart and he's strong and he doesn't have any issues whatsoever with what's going on? What do you think?
I've always thought what must he have felt like when, he put him on the horse and brought him through the square of town. He probably was thinking, okay,
what's going on here?
What's the deal? Am I, is this it? Is this a trap? Am I getting ready to die here, right now?
Yeah, because he's actually called to come in. And then, what was he thinking when he was called to come in? And there he is. He's like, oh, this is it. I'm a dead man. But he puts all this stuff on him, and he starts walking around saying, here's the great things the king does for those whom he's pleased with. And,
yeah, he's probably on the horseback. Right.
Yeah. He gets back. He goes back to the gate thinking, okay, that was strange. But still,
I see him as a man of faith. I don't think he cared.
you don't think it bothers? I'm sure that is true. But still, did it bother him? We don't know. We're not told. But what about Esther? Did she have worry? Was she stressed? Very stressed. Asked for people. She wanted to take some time before she went before the king. She fasted. She had her people fast. She asked for all the Jews to fast in her stead, that this would go well. And how stressful all these things as they are playing out. And now, here's the night. This is it. How will the king react? What will he say? What will he do? This is his most trusted advisor. He gave his signet ring to the man. He hasn't taken it back. He still has it. He has the king's signet ring this whole time. Haman has the king's trust almost 100%. And so here it is. They come, and we know how the story goes. We never stop to really think about what they are going through. And so in verse 1, now the king and Haman came to drink wine with Esther the queen. Now remember, Haman was brought straight from his home, and he's already troubled by what he had to do for Mordecai and upset. That happened the same day. That just happened that afternoon. So he's coming to this. He's probably thinking, time to relax, try to forget about what happened this afternoon. Go sit with the queen. Verse 2, and the king said to Esther on the second day also, as they drank their wine at the banquet, what is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to half of the kingdom it shall be done. And then she finally gives her request. Then Queen Esther replied, if I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me as my petition, and my people as my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Now, if we had only been sold as slaves, men and women, I would have remained silent, for the trouble would not be commensurate with the annoyance to the king. All right, let's stop there. Let's analyze what she said. Interesting, the Pew Packers, when that question came up about her petition, what she started off with, they said, kill Haman. And you would think that would be it. My petition is the head of Haman on a platter, right? Just like John the Baptist.
Wouldn't have done any good.
Wouldn't have done any good.
It's already written down. It has to happen. Haman alive or dead.
Okay. But I see it. I think that's true. But I see that as, how would the king have reacted to that? My request is, I want you to give your most trusted advisor, the man you gave your signet ring, I want you to give his life to me. That'd be a hard sell to the king. Why? But instead, she played after something that he does care about. I petition my life because I'm going to die. I'm going to be annihilated. I mean, how shocking that would have been to the king. Like, what do you mean? And in fact, his response is just that. Verse 5, then King Ahasuerus asked Queen Esther, who is he and where is he? Who would presume to do this? Now, that's interesting. Because how did she word this? I and my people to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. What does that remind you of? The word I couldn't remember, and Jim had to remind me. It's the same wording as the decree. That's exactly how it was worded, to have all the Jews killed. But he's probably a little stressed by what she's saying. He's wondering, what is going on? Who is it? So he's angry. He wants to save his queen, so he's not going to let this happen. So now the stage is set.
So do you think that he didn't know this whole time that she was Jewish?
I don't think he did. I don't think Haman did either. I don't think they connected those dots. You would think they would have. You would think they would have connected that. But it doesn't seem to be, because you would think even Haman would at this point realize the trouble he was in going to the banquet with the queen like this. But he doesn't seem to have a clue.
Again, I'm going to assume that they don't pay a lot of attention to the details, mostly because as a Jewess, she's been assumed to keep kosher. So her diet would have been different than everyone else. So again, you'd think at least the servants would have known something was different.
Yeah, and I think they had to have known. Because we were discussing that in the beginning, with Mordecai always there watching over her and after her. They're very wise. I mean, we're going to see here in a moment, even some of the king's servants knew what Haman was building over there in his house for Mordecai. They knew a lot of things. But the king keeps himself aloof. Remember when Mordecai put on the sackcloth, was he allowed to come into the palace area? He was not. And when we're going to see here in a moment, when Haman becomes distressed, remember, what do they do to Haman? First thing, they cover his head. The king doesn't want to see that sort of thing. Not in his presence. Nothing sad, only happy things. And he lives his life, I think, in a very sheltered way. He doesn't know what's going on. But he is concerned. He is stressed about what she's saying. So he asks, who would presume to do this? Verse 6. And I can just see the queen, she's over here, and the king is here, and Haman right in the middle with his wine, like, whoa, man, what's going on here? And he's taking a drink and smiling, watching the drama. And Esther said, a foe and an enemy is this wicked Haman. Oh, man. Then Haman became terrified before the king and queen. That would be terrifying. She set that up perfectly. The king arose, verse 7, in his anger from drinking wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman stayed to beg for his life from Queen Esther, for he saw that harm had been determined against him by the king. He saw that harm had been determined. So he got up angry. So that anger, he was probably looking right at Haman when he got up and walked out. Now, why walk out to the garden? Why do you think the king would do that? Now, this is supposition. We're just supposing here. But what do you think? What are your thoughts? Jody, you got a thought? Okay, to calm down. Yeah, he gets angry easy. He gets angry pretty easy. What else?
Think about it.
To think about it. Queen Esther just gave him a lot to think about. The word she said, Haman, and what do you think he's thinking about? He's out there in the garden. What's going through his mind?
How do I handle this?
And how did I handle this? So,
My wife is a Jew.
yeah, my wife's a Jew. I thought she was perfect. So he's thinking on these things, and he's looking at Haman. And I would be thinking, why would he do this? Is this done on purpose? And here in just a little bit, he's going to find out that he built some gallows to kill Mordecai. Why? And going through my mind, why would he want Mordecai? He saved my life. He wants Mordecai dead? He wants the queen dead? He wants wait a minute. Is he after my job? Does he want to be king? I would be connecting those kind of thoughts. dots together if I was him, but I don't know if he is even capable of doing that based on everything we've learned about him. He really seems to be aloof, but he's definitely upset. He's angry. So he goes out to the palace garden, and while he is out there, or verse 8, let's just keep reading. Now when the king returned from the palace garden into the place where they were drinking wine, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, "Will he even assault the queen with me in the house?" As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. So the servants who were there, they already knew, they know the king well. They were probably already prepared. As soon as they heard what was happening, they were getting the bag ready to put over his head. Like, oh, it's coming. He comes in, and then he falls on the couch, falling onto the queen, probably where she is lounging. Not a good scene to be seen. And that was it for him.
I kind of wonder why, again, in other cultures, palace guards would chop him up for approaching the queen like that. So, for some reason, they didn't.
Well, right. Well, my guess is that he was over there begging for his life, and he was so stressed, he probably, as the king was approaching, he fell, as the text said. I think he literally just fell and didn't intend to. And when that happened, as the king was saying it, the guards were probably already moving to take him. And then threw the hood over his face, and that's it for Haman. Now let's think back on everything that's happened for him. How many opportunities has he had to try to do the right thing that you can remember? Several. Mordecai, when he would see him, but God had really blessed him with a lot of things. But what the one thing he could, he's even told his whole family and all his servants, even though I have all these things and all these sons and all this money, the king's blessing, this one man not bowing before me, I can't take it. It's all rubbish. It's useless to me. So there's that issue. Secondly, the opportunity where he had to bless Mordecai in front of everybody should have been a wake-up call for him. I think there were probably plenty of opportunities for him to see who the queen was. And he was just overlooking it for his own ambitions. And I think even here at the banquet, he had opportunity to turn and repent and tried to make those amends there, but he didn't seem to be doing that.
Also, when he was at home the second time, and his family, the first time said, "Oh, you got it." The second time is, "Oh, you're dead."
Yeah. If he is really of Jewish origin, then you will fall. He had an opportunity to try to make it right. Do you think God has been patient with him? I think so. Everyone, this is Proverbs 16:5. Everyone who is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Assuredly, he will not go unpunished. Or Ecclesiastes 8:11. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly, therefore the hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. I like that passage there. Fully to do evil. Because the sentence is not executed quickly. Do you think he felt safe, maybe?
Up until she said, "Him."
Yeah, him, that's right. But he was getting all these opportunities. God was being patient. But he felt safe in all these situations, despite all the warning signs that were starting to come up. He continued on his course. And I think we in this world, we fall in this same trap. God is very patient with us. Was that 2 Peter 3:9? The patience of God in our days. That he doesn't wish for anyone to perish, but all to come to repentance to him. And with that patience, what do people do? When they're doing evil and they're not being judged, they're not being punished, what do they feel like they can do? Get away with it and do more. And do more. And I think this was Haman's problem. He kept getting away with it. And I thought, no, I'm gonna rise to the top. And then, of course, eventually, it did not work out that way. He will lose his life. So they cover Haman's face, and then verse 9, then Harbona, one of the eunuchs who were before the king, said, "Behold, indeed, the gallows standing at Haman's house 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on behalf of the king." And the king said, hang him on it. And that was it. I think it's interesting. He ends it with, who spoke good on behalf of the king. I think everybody there was connecting a dot that Haman was plotting to take the king. Makes you wonder, I wonder if the king later on was thinking, I bet you Haman is the one that put up those first few guys that Mordecai saved me from to kill me. Because that's what it almost seems like. The way all this played out. Everything fell on Haman and his pride. So they hanged Haman on the gallows, which he had prepared for Mordecai.
He turned you into a king who would recognize at the end. He was done with it and said, hang on.
Said, yeah, that's it. You're dead. Hang him. Proverbs 11:8. The righteous is delivered from trouble, but the wicked takes his place. And that's exactly what happened to Haman. Do not be deceived. Paul tells us in Galatians, God is not mocked. Or, I like Job, even as I have seen that the plow, I have to look at it. According to what I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble harvest it. And of course, Paul quotes that same idea in Galatians. And do we see that in the Old Testament in physical ways? Do we see that? You reap what you sow. Jacob killed an animal. Remember that? And he lied to his father. Remember, he killed that animal, and he doesn't do it. His mother does, but he uses that to make a hair on his arms, and he pretends to be Esau. Years later, Jacob's sons kill an animal and lie to him about his son dying. And that's interesting. Pharaoh gives orders to drown all the Jewish baby boys. Remember that in Exodus chapter 1? And then his whole army drowns in the sea of reeds. And on and on and on. There's example after example of things like this. You reap what you sow through the Old Testament. And how is that? How is that? Why is that? Explain to me how that works today. How do we reap what we sow? What does that mean?
I think generally when you abide by the principles of godly principles, righteous principles, it brings good things to your life. When you don't, it causes calamity, it causes distress, it causes problems.
If you are good and gracious and kind and helpful to people all through your life, and when calamity comes to your life, are you going to have somebody, few people at least, come help you? More than likely. But if you push people away, if you're mean, if you are conniving and you lie and you stab people in the back and then calamity comes into your life, is there going to be anyone who comes in to help you out? We don't use the term too much in our society about you reap what you sow. We say you live by the sword and you die by the sword. Because that's the way most people live. They're very conniving, a lot of lying, and it's in a very evil way. And here Haman is the example of that for us. The way he lived his life is the way he lost his life. Everything he wanted to do. He wanted to be the one that was proud to be taken across the city and given praise to, and then he's the one that had to do it for Mordecai. He wanted to hang Mordecai on the gallows, and he's the one that gets hung on the gallows. Everything he wanted to do happened for another. And everything that he wanted to do to that person happened to him. It seemed like the harder he worked toward his goals, the more God worked against what he was asking for. And then the king's wrath was subsided. You know, that's that word used there, subsided in Esther. It's the same Hebrew word when the waters receded. It was the same Hebrew word that used there when it receded from the earth. And so the king's anger was subsided there by the death of Haman. Now, there's still a problem. The Jews, as Jim was pointing out, are still going to die. Of course, we've read the book, we know, but I want us to continue to go through this and examine this, and we'll see how that works out in the following chapters, but not before Mordecai is promoted for his good deeds. Interesting. So here we are at chapter 7. It almost seems like the end of the story, but we still got several more chapters to go, a lot more to look at. So before we close out with a song and a prayer, what if you hadn't read ahead, would you know everything else that happens in this story other than the Jews will survive? Because we have, 3 or 4 more chapters to go. What else is going to happen? There's only a little bit left to the story. Sometimes we forget about a lot of things that occur in some of these books we think we know, and we read and read and read. And I hope that we can glean some of those things as we keep looking at this over the next couple of weeks.